listing had seemed too good to be true. A spacious one-bedroom apartment in the heart of the city, cheaper than anything else on the market. Nathan had been searching for weeks, struggling to find a place that wouldn't drain his entire paycheck. When he saw the ad, he jumped on it immediately. The landlord, an older man with a stiff demeanor, had been briefed during the showing. The walls were painted an unremarkable beige. The wooden floors scuffed but solid. The apartment smelled of fresh paint and something else, something faintly metallic beneath the surface. Nathan had ignored it. He signed the lease that same afternoon. It wasn't until he moved in that he noticed how quiet the building was. The other tenants rarely left their apartments, their doors always shut, their blinds drawn tight. In the hallway, footsteps seemed to vanish before reaching the end. The elevator creaked and groaned, but it always arrived empty. The first few nights passed uneventfully. Nathan unpacked his things, set up his small living room, and started to settle in. It was only on the fourth night that he learned why the apartment had been so cheap. At exactly 3 a.m., a sound stirred him from sleep. It was faint at first, a distant chuckle that could have been a dream. He sat up in bed, the darkness pressing in around him. The laughter grew louder, rolling through the apartment like a slow-moving wave. It didn't come from outside his window or the hallway beyond his door. It came from inside the walls. Nathan lay frozen in his bed, his heart hammering in his chest. The laughter was strange, layered, like multiple voices whispering and chuckling in unison. It faded after a few minutes, swallowed by the silence of the early morning. The next day, he searched for explanations. He knocked on the walls, listening for signs of pipes or vents that could be carrying sound. He asked the landlord about it, but the man only offered a vague shrug. "Old buildings make noises," he said. That night, the laughter returned. Louder, closer. Nathan pressed his ear against the wall, his skin prickling at the warmth seeping through the plaster. The laughter was clearer now, unmistakably human. It didn't sound like a single person, but many, their voices curling together in amusement. He tried to record it on his phone, but when he played it back, there was only silence. The next morning, he searched online for any history about the building. It took hours of digging, but eventually, he found something. A short article from 2 years ago. A man named Daniel Reed had lived in the apartment before him. A quiet, unassuming tenant who had one day vanished without a trace. His belongings had remained untouched, his rent unpaid. No forced entry, no signs of struggle. Just gone. Nathan scrolled through the comments beneath the article, his stomach twisting. "They never found his body," one read. "He used to say he heard things in the walls," another wrote. Nathan stared at the words, the air in the apartment suddenly feeling thick, heavy. He glanced at the walls around him, at the smooth, painted surface that had seemed so ordinary just days before. That night, he didn't sleep. At 3 a.m., the laughter began again. It was louder than ever, no longer distant. It came from the wall beside his bed, seeping through the drywall like a living thing. Nathan pressed his hands against the surface, and the laughter stopped, abruptly, unnaturally. The silence stretched. Then from the other side of the wall, something knocked back. Nathan jerked away, his breath catching in his throat. His mind scrambled for logic, for reason, but there was none. He stood, grabbed his phone, and turned on the flashlight. The beam of light swept across the room, catching on the edges of furniture. The wall looked the same as it had that morning, smooth, featureless, but the air in the room had changed. It felt charged, waiting. Nathan exhaled shakily and did the only thing he could think of. He knocked again. Silence. Then, a slow, deliberate knock in return. Nathan stumbled back, his pulse hammering against his ribs. His fingers gripped the phone so tightly his knuckles ached. He had to know. Heart pounding, he moved to the wall, fingers tracing the edges of the paint. He pressed his ear against it, barely breathing. On the other side, something exhaled. Nathan jerked away so fast he nearly fell. His hands were shaking now, a cold sweat breaking across his skin. He stared at the wall, waiting, expecting something to happen. Nothing did, but he knew, deep in his bones, that he was not alone in the apartment. The next day he called the landlord again. He pressed for answers, demanded to know if something had happened in the unit. The man sighed, his voice distant. "Look," he said, "if you want to break the lease, I understand." Nathan frowned. It's not the first time," the landlord muttered, as if to himself. "Won't be the last." Then he hung up. Nathan stood in the middle of his apartment, his grip tightening around the phone. The silence around him felt heavier than before, thick with something unseen. That night, he didn't try to sleep. He stayed up, waiting, listening. The laughter came right on time, a slow, creeping chuckle that rose from the depths of the walls. Nathan picked up a hammer. He had to know. Nathan sat in the dim glow of his desk lamp, the hammer resting in his lap. The laughter had started again, soft at first, curling through the room like a whisper carried on the wind. He had tried to ignore it the previous nights, hoping it would fade, hoping it was just his mind playing tricks on him. But it was real. It was inside the walls. He ran his fingers over the cool metal of the hammer's handle, his pulse quickening. He had to know. The laughter came again, clearer this time, closer. It wasn't distant anymore. It was right there, just beyond the drywall. He stood, his movements slow and deliberate. The weight of the hammer felt reassuring in his grip. He stepped toward the wall, placing his free hand against it, feeling the faint vibrations beneath his palm. The laughter didn't stop. It only deepened, rich with amusement, as if whatever was inside knew what he was about to do. Nathan raised the hammer. The first swing cracked through the silence, the sound of impact ringing through the apartment. A dent appeared in the wall, a jagged wound in the smooth white surface. Dust and fragments of drywall crumbled to the floor. The laughter swelled. He struck again, and again. The hole widened, revealing the dark space between the walls. Nathan's breath came in quick, shallow gasps. He leaned in, shining his phone's flashlight into the cavity. The beam cut through the dust, illuminating wooden beams and old insulation. But there was something else, something wrong. At first it looked like shadows shifting within the darkness. Then he saw it, teeth. A grin stretched across the void, too wide, too unnatural. The teeth were yellowed, jagged, set within the folds of something that looked almost like flesh, but was fused into the wood, into the very structure of the apartment. The laughter erupted all around him, no longer muffled, no longer distant. It was in the walls, in the floor, in the ceiling, reverberating through the apartment like a pulse. Nathan stumbled backward, his phone slipping from his grasp. The light flickered as it landed on the floor, casting long, shifting shadows. The mouth moved. It didn't speak, no words, no voice, just a sound, a wet, gurgling amusement that sent ice through Nathan's veins. The grin widened. Something within the darkness shifted, pressing forward. Nathan bolted. He didn't stop to grab his phone. didn't stop to think. He tore through the apartment, reaching the door, fumbling with the lock. His hands were slick with sweat, shaking. The laughter swelled behind him, rushing forward like a wave, pressing against his back. He yanked the door open and stumbled into the hallway. The sound stopped. Silence. Nathan stood there, his breath ragged, his heart pounding. He turned, looking back at the open door to his apartment. Nothing moved. The laughter was gone, as if it had never been there. His phone's flashlight still cast a weak glow from the floor, illuminating the ragged hole in the wall. The mouth was gone. Had he imagined it? Number he had seen it. He had heard it. He backed away, his mind racing. He needed to leave. He needed to get out of this building and never return. Then, he noticed something. The other apartment doors. The ones that had always been shut. The ones behind which he had never seen another tenant. They were open. Every single one of them. The hall stretched into darkness, the doors yawning like silent mouths. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. He turned and ran. Nathan ran, his bare feet slapping against the cold floor of the hallway. The building stretched endlessly before him, the dim overhead lights flickering as he passed beneath them. His breath came in ragged gasps, his pulse hammering in his ears. The laughter was gone, but the silence that replaced it was worse. The open apartment doors gaped like wounds along the corridor. Shadows pooled inside them, thick and unmoving, as if the apartments were no longer empty but waiting. Nathan didn't stop to look. He reached the stairwell and threw himself down the steps, gripping the railing to keep from falling. The building felt wrong. Too long, too vast. Had there always been this many floors? The descent stretched endlessly, each level identical to the last. Panic clawed at his chest. He forced himself to keep moving. Then, as suddenly as it had stretched, the stairwell ended. The door to the lobby loomed before him, slightly ajar. A sliver of darkness seeped through the crack. He hesitated. The silence pressed in, thick and heavy. Something was wrong. He could feel it, a presence just beyond the threshold, waiting. But he had no choice. He pushed the door open. The lobby was empty. The front desk stood abandoned, the potted plants by the windows wilted and gray. The glass doors leading outside were covered in grime. The city beyond shrouded in a dense fog. Nathan moved forward, his pulse still racing. He reached for the door handle, but the moment his fingers touched the glass, a sound echoed behind him. A single knock. Slow, deliberate. He turned. The elevator doors at the end of the lobby had slid open. Beyond them, there was no elevator car, no cables, no machinery, just darkness, yawning and infinite. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. He took a step back. A figure stood at the threshold. It was tall, its form stretched and wrong, as if human but not quite. Its skin was the color of the walls, its limbs long and thin. Its face, if it had one, was obscured by shadow, but its mouth was smiling. The laughter returned. It didn't come from the figure, nor from the walls. It came from everywhere at once, rising in layers, a chorus of amusement that swelled and twisted in the air. Nathan turned and threw himself against the doors. They didn't budge. The glass was ice cold beneath his hands, slick with something that smelled metallic. The laughter grew. He pounded against the glass, screaming for help, but the city outside was silent, empty. The fog pressed against the doors, shifting, swirling. Faces formed within it, watching, grinning. A cold breath ghosted against the back of his neck. Nathan spun, pressing his back against the glass. The figure was closer now, just a few feet away. Its mouth had stretched wider, splitting its face apart in a grin that was too large, too sharp. Nathan's body locked up. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The walls of the lobby shuddered, the paint bubbling, cracking. The laughter was inside them again, pressing through the very bones of the building. The figure reached out. Nathan's vision blurred, the world warping around him. The walls yawned open, revealing more mouths, more grins, stretching endlessly into the dark. Then, everything went silent, cold, dark. When Nathan opened his eyes, he was standing in the middle of his apartment. The hole in the wall was gone. His phone was on the nightstand, its screen dark. The air smelled of fresh paint. He turned slowly. The apartment was exactly as it had been when he first moved in. Had it been a dream? He reached for his phone with trembling fingers, checking the time. 2:59 a.m. A single knock echoed from inside the wall. Then, the laughter began again.